welcome to the Teacher Geek YouTube channel. Here we show teachers how to use technology with a purpose. Hello, in today's video I wanted to cover Padlet.com. Padlet is probably one of the most versatile tools for a teacher that I've found. The reason it's so versatile is in a way because it's so simple. Padlet is basically an online notice board or bulletin board to which you can post anything you want. And that means if you're creative, it's really flexible in how you use it. So I'm going to do two videos on Padlet. One, how to set up a Padlet, build it, change some of the settings, the way it looks, those sorts of things. Just a really kind of overview tutorial, which is what I'm going to do in this video. Then I'm going to create another video where we look at the use cases for Padlet, the number of different ways that it can be used, and how you might set it up differently for each one. Because Padlet can be used for assessment for learning, it can be used for collaborative learning, it can be used for flipped learning or self-directed learning, it can even be used for presentation. So we'll look at each one of those cases in a separate video. So let's carry on and take a look at what Padlet really looks like and how to set it up step by step. So here is Padlet.com, and what you'll notice at first is that you can see right on the left side you can get access to all of the recent Padlets that you've made, all the ones you've made overall, any that you've shared or have been shared with you, any other Padlets that you've liked, and so on. You can even create folders here. But before we really get into the nitty-gritty, I just want to talk about the different levels of Padlet accounts. As I said in my introductory video, one of the things I want to focus on is the stuff that's free for teachers, because teachers are poor and we spend enough money in the classroom already. So you can absolutely get a free Padlet account. Currently, with a free Padlet account, you can do 3 Padlets at any one time. I was an early adopter for Padlet. I signed up almost as soon as they came out and have made a lot of referrals since, which means that actually I have many more than 3. There are 2 things you can do within that limitation to give yourself more use out of the Padlet. One of them is you can delete your Padlet and then make a new one. So the 3 is 3 simultaneous Padlets that exist at any one time. So you can use it that way. The other thing you can do is use a referral code. And for every 3 referrals you make, you get another Padlet. So if you click up here on your account and go to settings, you can click on referrals and you get this little referral code. And for every 3 referrals you make, you get another free Padlet. So you can see I've made 11 referrals, 1 more, I get another free Padlet. And so you can continue to grow how many Padlets you can use by getting your learners or your students to sign up using your referral code, and then you get more Padlets to use, which is one of the things I do. I get my trainees to use a referral code. I'm quite open and honest with them. I tell them that's what I'm doing. Click onto my referral code, I get more Padlets that I can use, which means I can more effectively use it as a resource. It is worth looking at the Pro account if you're interested in that. There is a Pro account that you can pay for. It charges at $8.25 a month. You can also pay annually, and it does give you some additional freedom. You can then create an unlimited number of Padlets. It increases your maximum file size to 250 megabytes instead of, I think it's 10 megabytes now. You can create more folders, you get priority support, things like that. If you click on View Plans, you can also see that you've got an account that's billed annually as well. So there is an option for a paid Padlet, but I've only ever used free and I absolutely love it. So to get started, if we just click on Make Padlet, the first thing you're going to choose is the Padlet Layout, and I'll talk about this more in the use cases video, the different ways that you might use each one of these layouts for different pedagogical needs. The first one is a wall, where you just get a brick-like layout. Then you've got Canvas, which allows you to connect and link between different ideas, sort of mind map style. You've got Stream, which looks like a social media feed. Grid, which looks a a bit cleaner. It's very organized. Shelf, which is probably the one I use most often currently, where I can create different columns and content can be added to each of those columns. Really good to use as a portfolio and things like that. Then you've got back channel, map, which is really neat. And of course, if you're doing anything that's around history or development of an idea, timeline is a great one for that as well. And that's a newer one. I've not used that one much myself. So if today we just look at the general wall, so I'm going to select that. And there are two things that once you get into the Padlet, you'll want to be doing. The first is to go ahead and give your Padlet a name. So this is our Teacher Geek Padlet. And you can give it a little bit of description. I love that Padlet has a bit of sense of humor about themselves, and the description will always default to some really kind of positive quote or phrase. So made with magic is great. So for us, this can be Teacher Geek Test Padlet. The next thing you can do that's worth looking at is you can change the last part of the address. So the first part of the address will be static. It's going to be padlet.com / your username, whatever username you've created. But the second part of that can be up to you. So it defaults to a random code, but we can, again, without spaces, add our own code to it. So that could be economics morning group, or it could be English group A, whatever. You can make that anything you want. You can then also change the background to anything you want. I kind of like the little jetpack one there, actually. Let's do that. It's a bit cartoonish. So now I've changed the background and the wallpaper. I can change the color scheme, the font, things like that. But there are a few other things that are worth noting. I like to turn on attribution if I'm using this with students, so that students have to log in and anything they post is tagged with their name. So if something ends up there that's not entirely appropriate, it's tagged and I know who put it there. Also means that students are going to pay a bit more attention to what they're putting up. I also will often, again, depending on the use case, turn on comments, so I can make comments on student work or they can make comments on each other's work. And of course, depending on your group, you may want to require approval, so nothing ends up posted there unless you approve it. And you can turn on the profanity filter so that anything that is poor language will be filtered out. Then I click next, and I'm all ready to start posting on my Padlet. To post anywhere on the Padlet, I can just double click anywhere. Comes up, you can see it's tagged with my name because I turned that on. I can give it a title. I can give it a little description. And then I can upload a document. I can link to another web page. I can search Google. I can even snap a photo using my webcam. So let's do that. And then it's going to post that photo. So students can even do that from their mobile devices. They can take a photo of their work and they can post it to the Padlet. They can post anything they want there. So they can even go, I don't know, to a random YouTube channel and post a link to that. So we can go find Teacher Geek, copy the link, and then we can post the link there, and it will go and it'll grab the screenshot of the thumbnail for that and put that on your page as well. So that's how you can post content. If you're on a mobile device, one of the things you'll see is you'll also see this little plus down here. So if they can't just double click and add, they can just click on the plus and add from there. It is worth noting how you can change the settings of the Padlet if you make some different decisions about how you want it to look. So I can come in here to the settings icon and I can give the Padlet a little icon. I can give it an emoji. There we go. Then I can come back and change any of those other settings that I made initially at any time that I want. The other thing that's worth noting is if I come in here, I can get to any of those details and change them as well. So I can change the format. So even though I initially selected the standard one, I can move this to shelf, or let's go with grid so you can see how that would look differently. And it's just going to take my items and just shift them. So now they're going to snap to a grid wherever I post them. So if I post anything new, it's just going to snap in to a grid there for me. The next thing that's worth noting is how you share it. How do I get this Padlet out to my students? Easiest thing, and probably the one you'd use most often, is you can copy the link to the clipboard. You can post it on your virtual learning environment if you use Moodle or Firefly or Frog or any of those kind of virtual learning environments or VLEs. You can just copy the link right here, paste it up, and you're done. The other thing that I like about this is within my share, I can change the privacy here. So right now it's at secret, that the Padlet's completely hidden from the public. But if I want to change my privacy, I can make it password protected. So it's open, but you need a password to get in. So if I want to make sure that only my students are accessing it, I can do that. I can make it completely private, so nobody sees it at all. Or I can make it completely public, so it's completely open. I tend to use secret most often because I'm not really posting anything to the Padlet that's particularly private or a data protection issue. But in some cases, if I'm using it just for one group, I might make it password. I can also change the permissions. Again, most often I use Can Write, but if I just want students to be able to look at the Padlet but not make any changes or make any posts, I can change that to Can Read. Can Write allows them to make posts, but if I'm doing something that's a higher level of collaboration, that I want people to make posts, to be able to share it, to change the settings and the format of the Padlet itself, I can turn on Can Edit. So if you've got students doing a collaborative project and one student creates the Padlet, shares it with another student, they may want to turn it on Can Edit so they can both make changes. The other thing I can do when sharing this is I can generate a QR code straight from here. So I can literally start my lesson, put the QR code up on the board, students come up, they scan the QR code on their mobile device, boom, they're on my Padlet and ready to go. I can share it in Google Classroom, Twitter, Facebook, send it out via email, and even if my students have an account, and this is the way I get students to share a portfolio Padlet with me, is I just get them to click on Add Members and then search for my username, and they share it with me, and boom, it's embedded in my shared Padlet folder, and I can access it at any time. So that's a really good way to do it. The other thing you can do is you can save the Padlet as an image or a PDF, even as a spreadsheet. I'm not sure that that's particularly useful, but the image in PDF can be useful if you want to do the Padlet as a sort of handout of evidence. So you've got a lot of content on there and you're just handing it out to students in a printout. Do be aware that if it's really full of content, that printout, the text gets really small, it gets much harder to read, things like that. But it is worth knowing that you can do it. So that's the basics of how to set up a Padlet, how to add content to a Padlet. It is worth noting as well that you can drag and drop to a Padlet as well. So if you have a folder open with a file, you can just drag it in, drop it on your Padlet, and change the title, add a description, those sorts of things. Thanks very much. I hope the study of Padlet has been useful, and be sure to watch the next video where I look at the different ways that you can use it in terms of pedagogy, right? How do you actually put this to use in the classroom so it benefits you as the teacher and your students?